Everyone, thanks so much for your time tonight. Hopefully, you learned some fun facts and figures around the wines that Scott's highlighting tonight, and kind of the wines that live in the family of the wines that we're highlighting tonight. It's great to see your faces. Really, the goal was just to get everyone together, see you all digitally since we can't see you in person, do something fun, and hopefully, like I said, learn some fun stuff. Again, this is more of like a casual, safe space. So this is where you will ask all the questions that you don't want to ask if you're like on a date or like a really, really high-end restaurant. So Scott's awesome. I've sat in a couple like shorter sessions with him. He has really fun tricks of the trade and things like that. And so feel free to pop on and off of mute to ask questions, and I'm going to let Scott take it away.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Wine Wednesday. I have been looking at the video images of everyone on the tasting today, and I've yet to see a single person take a sip of wine. So I can't even for tasting without someone. There you go. I saw some rosé there. That's great. Well, I guess the best way to start is to tell you a little bit about myself. I have a company called Jones is Thirsty, and I've been traveling around the country teaching people about wine for more than 15 years now. And my company tagline is "No Snobbery Wine Education." So whether I am giving an education session to a group of neurosurgeons or commercial real estate agents, I always make sure that I present the information in a way that makes everyone feel comfortable. My goal is to empower everyone to feel a little more confident when they buy wine at the grocery store, when they're trying to navigate a wine list at a restaurant, or just enjoying, having a little bit more education about what is in their wine glass. So there will be no test at the end of this. And as Laura said, when I do these events, sometimes I'll have upwards of 150 people on a Zoom session, and we have to keep some order. But in this setting, I really would encourage you just to unmute yourself and ask questions. You will get sick of hearing me talk. And the way that this really works, and where we can have some fun, you'll be a little apprehensive until you've had about 3/4 of your first glass, and the relaxation will begin to wash over you, and suddenly you'll be super curious. But I really mean it. Ask any question you want. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and it really applies to wine, because I promise you, in my experience, when you ask a question, 9 out of 10 chances, more than half the people that are around you want to ask the same question, just like you jumped in first. So, the other thing is, and I say this in the beginning of all my events, wine is unique in the sense that it's totally subjective. And a lot of that is driven because as humans, our brain is filled with these taste memories and sensory memories. So depending on where you were raised, your environment, what you smell in a glass, like if you smell that rosé, what you smell may be totally different from what the person next to you is smelling. That doesn't mean that one interpretation is more valid than the other. That just means that we're individuals. I grew up in the middle of orange groves in Central Florida. I know scents like orange blossoms, citrus zest, sand, real sandy, after that smell of sand after a rain, in the middle of summer when it would rain every day at 5:30 or 6. The smell of the asphalt and the humidity, like those are things that I remember. My grandmother loved to bake peach pies in the summertime. Those are things in my brain. Each one of you will have experiences like that. It's like, during the holidays, I can walk into Bed Bath & Beyond and I can catch the scent of like some Christmas candle, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's my grandmother's whatever. And in my mind's eye, I can be immediately put right back in that setting when I was, 10 years old in her kitchen waiting for dinner to come out. All that to say is everyone is sophisticated in their own sensory and their ability to perceive that. So don't get freaked out or frustrated if you don't have a word to articulate what you're experiencing. That comes with just, feeling more comfortable and letting it fly. So I just want to encourage you to use this opportunity to let it fly. So I like I said, I travel around the country doing this since the quarantine in March. I've had to pivot to all of my sessions being in a virtual setting, and have been doing quite a bit of this, and it's been a blast. It really has. So good to see all of you. And I guess a quick side note is that I'm based in Birmingham, Alabama. Prior to moving here 20 years ago, my wife and I were New Yorkers. So I worked at Food and Wine magazine. I know what it's like to be there in the summer. So it's just as hot here and just as humid, maybe a slightly bit more breeze than you have in the city right now. But
speaking of smells, there's a lot of obscure,
that's right.
great
That's
smells
right.
that you may pull out of your wine from.
That's right. That's right. If we were having some classic French Bordeaux, you might get some smells of the city. We tend to call that in wine, we call that barnyard. But definitely you might pick up those in Bordeaux. Luckily, we don't have any of those for this tasting. I'm going to share my screen real quick and just kind of run through a couple of things. I know that Laura sent this out ahead of time, but we're going to look at 3 wines from 3 very different regions around the world. All of these are easy to find, and I selected all of them because not only are they terrific value, but they're also really wonderful examples of these particular regions or winemaking methods. And on here, I show the Sauvignon Blanc first, which in most circumstances, you would start with the lightest white wine. So it's just like a meal. You rarely start with dessert, like the heaviest thing. You typically start with something light and work your way up. Same thing happens in wine and food. But for this particular one, I want to start with a rosé because actually it is the lightest wine, even though it has some tint to it. So if you have your rosé, please pick it up now. Don't be afraid. And before we take another, before we jump into talking about it, grab the glass. You don't have to, get crazy swirling it. When I swirl my wine, I kind of put it down and swirl it a little bit. I mean, you can pick it up and swirl it, but by the end of the night, that goes everywhere. It's all over my shirt. I just put it on the table and I swirl it a little bit. And then when it comes to, evaluating wine, you want to kind of put your nose in it and take 3 big sniffs. And don't, you might get a little lightheaded from the big sniffs, but what you're trying to do right now is just see if anything, if you read anything in the glass, do any particular aromas stand out? For me, one of the things that I get in this is watermelon. That's one of the things that I smell. Of course, I grew up eating a lot of watermelon. I love it. It's a summertime thing in the South. So I'm going to ask everyone to unmute themselves and tell me if they sense a fruit or any kind of aroma in the glass. If not, again, you're not broken. Your nose isn't broken. You're not unsophisticated or an infidel. Just means, sometimes it just might smell like cold wine. Anyone?
Peaches.
Bueller?
Peaches for
Peaches?
me?
Yeah, stone fruits for sure. Yeah, good call. Good call. Yeah.
Now that
Yeah.
you said watermelon, that's all I can think about.
Yeah.
But it does smell like watermelon.
Man, that's another thing that sucks about wine is, you know, you say watermelon, people are like, yeah, man. Oh, wow. It's just screaming watermelon. You're like, coriander. Yeah. Wow. It smells like coriander. But yeah, definitely when it comes to rosé, some of those classic aromas are, you know, strawberries, maybe some light raspberry, watermelon, or maybe green melon. But those are some of the things you would experience. The other thing I want you to notice is if you happen to have a white piece of paper handy, or even if you don't, just look at the color of the wine. One of the things that you need to understand about rosé is there are 3 primary ways of making rosé. But what I need you to know is that the color of the rosé doesn't always indicate how strong the flavor is going to be or how full-bodied it might be. Unlike white wines or red wines, rosé is really the creation of rosé in its classic method is a function of leaving the skins in contact with the juice. So you can have a full-bodied rosé, but maybe the winemaker chose to just keep the skins in contact with the juice for a short amount of time, so it may look real light. At the same time, you could have a real light style, very delicate rosé, but the winemaker chose to leave the skins in contact with the juice for an extended amount of time. So you get this deep color, but it might be a light wine. Again, unlike white wine or red wine, rosé is a little bit of a different bird. Of everyone that's on the call, how many of you are fans of rosé? Just like a quick show of hands. I see hands being raised. That's good. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, let's take a sip of this. See what you think. Anybody's mouth watering? Feel the sides of your tongue tingling at all? Anybody feel that? That is, if you're feeling that, that's the acidity in the wine. That's kind of what you're looking for when it comes to a rosé. You want the rosé to be refreshing. That's, you know, you're typically drinking it in warmer weather. You want that thirst quenching, refreshing feel where your mouth is watering. It also is stimulating your appetite, makes you hungry. I hope y'all are nibbling on some foods at this point as well. Any particular flavors that jump out here? I mean, we talked about aromas of watermelon, strawberry, peaches. Any flavors? Anything? Anyone?
I'm getting a lot of citrus.
Citrus, very good. Citrus is definitely in there. Yep.
Kind of sweet, like cherries.
Yes. Sweet cherries, light sweet cherries, not like dark tart cherries that you would get in probably the red wine that we'll have, but definitely sweeter cherries. That's a function of the grapes that are in here. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Yeah, those are all really great, great observations. So, you know, now that you're comfortable drinking the wine, let me tell you a little bit about how it's made. There are 3, you know, basic methods for making rosé. The first method is called limited contact or limited maceration. That's probably the most popular style of rosé. So I'd say, you know, 75% of the rosé made in the world is made using that method. And just to back up a little bit, when you're making rosé I want to call it the European style, but it's basically every rosé made in the world that's not Sutter Home White Zinfandel, because that's not rosé. That's made like a white wine. Rosés are made like a red wine, and they're meant to be enjoyed like a chilled red wine. So they select red grapes. They can be Rosés made with Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Noir. It's made with Syrah, Grenache, all these red grapes that you've probably had in a bottle of red wine. But they select them and they crush them. But when they crush the grapes, even the ones with the purple skins, the juice that runs out is clear. Okay, does that everyone understand that? And the reason the wine turns red is because they crush the grapes and then they leave the skins and sometimes the seeds and the stems, but definitely the skins in contact with the juice. And that can last anywhere from 2 hours to 2 weeks. And they do it at a very low temperature, so fermentation doesn't start and the wine is just kind of sitting there, or the juice is just sitting there soaking in the skins. And so limited maceration and limited contact is when they, again, anywhere from, 2 hours to 2 days, and then they drain off the juice that will then have some color, and they'll ferment it into wine. That's probably the most popular method. Another method is called the saignée method, and you find that primarily in Italy. And what they do is they crush the grapes like they're getting ready to make a red wine. And saignée just means to bleed off. And what they'll do is they will keep everything in the tank, and they'll, kind of filter out or drain out a little bit of this wine from the bottom of the tank, and that wine will have a slight color to it. They will then take that and ferment it into a rosé. But what's left in the tank is this this brew that now has a higher concentration of skins than it does to juice. And then they make a red wine out of that. And that's how the Italians make really super full-bodied red wines, primarily in the north, the northwest of Italy, in the Piedmont region, where they have these beautiful, real robust red wines. That's not a super popular, they make delicious wines, but they're really done, the rosé is kind of a byproduct of these full-bodied red wines. The third method, and considered really the most delicate style of making rosé, which is what you're having here, is what's called the direct press. And this is found typically in the south of France, near Provence. And I'm going to show you a quick map of France here. So this is the map of France, and down here in the south is the Rhone Valley, and then this little aqua area here is Provence. And this is where you find the direct press method. And so basically what they do is they take the red grapes, they put them in this basket to crush, and they slowly add pressure, and the juice, as the grapes on the top begin to burst and the juice trickles down over the other grapes, that juice is picking up the pigments from those skins, and it is a gentle crush. And all they do is they gather that beautiful free run juice that comes out that will have a slight tint to it. And it's considered the most delicate and not necessarily the best, but certainly the most elegant and classic version of rosé. And that's what you're having with the La Vieille Ferme. And what it does is it produces a light color and a very light style. And that's why I wanted to have it first, because it's a pretty light representation of rosé. And, this is awesome on a hot day. It's like, I don't know, I think of it as like adult 7-Up, but it's got a little bit of a tint to it. But it's like, it's like a cherry 7-Up, I guess. But it is, it's relatively low in alcohol. It's about 11%. And it is just one of those wines that is custom made for warm weather, and really wonderful with a wide range of foods, from, cheeses to light appetizers, just super refreshing. Anybody having any food with this wine? or any nibbles that they care to share? You guys are just pounding the wine, huh? Okay, it's fair enough. Fair enough. But if we go back to the opening slide, you can have, again, great with dark cherry cranberries. You can actually get that fresh cranberry color and aroma here. Red delicious apples. Again, if you were to have a bite of the red delicious apple and close your eyes and take a sip of the rosé, you definitely pick up some of the echo of the flavor from the apples into the wine. This is also really great with spicy food. I put spicy Asian noodles there, but rosé like this, the cool of it and the acidity helps to really kind of soften the rough, hot edges of chili peppers. So whether it's Indian curry, spicy Thai noodles, rosé is just delicious alongside those foods. So what do you guys think about this? Any other foods pop to mind about what you might think about having with a wine like this?
Tom, how about with that rice you just burnt? How does it taste with burnt rice? Pretty good?
With chili.
We call that sticky rice.
It's my classic summer dish of hot chili.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect then. You're having it with the rosé.
It's not very spicy, but goes great. Scott, if maybe you're gonna get to this with a red wine, but if they leave the skins in longer, is that what makes it red wine, or do they ferment it with the skins
they
on?
do both. That's a great question, and I will definitely talk about that. Don't let me forget when we get to the red wines. But yes, that's exactly what happens. The truth is that when you're making red wines, that maceration process can go on anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. And they can either cold soak it before fermentation, or they can actually, then fermentation will actually take place with the skins, and it forms this crust at the top called a cap. And if you've ever been to a winery, they actually have people that do nothing but punch down that thick cap, which is, it literally hardens up. And that's what they actually make booze out of. Like if you go to Italy and have grappa, it's made out of that. It's called pumice, and it's the compressed cake of skins and seeds and stems, but they have to break that up. So not only can the CO2 be released, but it also, they punch it down, or they'll pump more juice over the top of it, so the juice can continue to filter down through the skins and pick up more color, more of the phenolics that add texture and flavor. That's where you get all the antioxidants like resveratrol and all the heart healthy things that you're supposed to have. But that's exactly how they make the red wine. So rosé is basically kind of the micro process of just adding a little bit of tint to it with the same red grapes. So for this rosé, the grapes that are in this wine are primarily Syrah, which if you've had Australian Shiraz, it's the same exact grape. In Australia, they call it Shiraz. In the south of France, they call it Syrah. And also another red grape called Grenache, which is the red grape that is in the Spanish wine that we're having. In Spain, they call it Garnacha. In France, in the south of France, it's called Grenache. But that's the other red grape that's in this blend. But when you just give it a little bit of skin contact, you get this beautiful, beautiful light rosé color. And rosés, again, can run the gamut from like bright strawberry to slightly orange. You really get this whole spectrum, and all of that is based on the original purple or oranginess of the grape skin, and then how long the winemaker chooses to leave that skin in contact with the juice.
And then this may be one of those stupid questions that you said don't exist in this conversation, but So if clearly all wine is made up of grapes. So when we talk about notes of peaches or watermelon, is that coming from like the soils that the grapes were grown in, or like is it just
Yes.
like it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they threw in a little bit of watermelon at the end?
No. That's a great question. Everyone's petrified to ask that. And in fact, my mom still won't drink red wine because she's like, I don't want anything where that someone's, soaked in leather or cigar. Don't do that. That's not how it gets made. But yes, you're exactly right. All wine that we're drinking, that you're buying legally in the store, cannot be adulterated with other compounds. It's just grapes. And those, what we call secondary flavors and aromas, really are and tertiary, comes on barrel for red wines and for white wines for that matter. But those flavors are coming from have you heard the term terroir? Sometimes you hear, particularly the French use that. But terroir basically describes all of the things that go into the process of creating the wine or the cheese or whatever it is that are outside of the original product. So it's the soil, it's the sunlight, it's the slope of the land, it's all those geographical elements, it's the wind, it's the rain or lack of rain. Those are all the things that create those flavors that you get in a wine. Hot and cold can create different flavor profiles, and we'll definitely see that in the Sauvignon Blanc. So let's take that for example. You can take the same grape, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, you can plant it in a cold region and you'll get flavors of pear, apple, citrus. You take that same grape and you put it in a climate that's real sunny and not super cold at night. That same grape will produce tropical flavors like pineapple, mango. So the temperature, the sunlight affect the flavor. And then of course the soil does as well. So whether it's a soil that's more gravelly, more clay and silt, more limestone, all of those things add minerality. They add other components to the flavor of the wine. And then if you put that wine in a oak barrel to age, you start to pick up notes of vanilla, butterscotch, coconut, and all of those are because the inside of the wood is filled with carbohydrates that are caramelized when they toast the inside of a barrel. And then when wine is stored in those barrels, it imparts color and flavor, and you pick up those aromas. So it's the same thing that you would experience with rum or bourbon. When they distill those original spirits, they're clear like water. You put them in an oak barrel, you let them sit for 5-10 years, turns that beautiful amber color. You open up bourbon, you smell that amazing vanilla and caramel. That's all from the oak. That's all from the oak. So you have the influence of the grains in bourbon. Definitely, if you get a bourbon from Kentucky, all of that is a lot of that delicate subtlety of that flavor is from the limestone soil that's unique to bourbon country in Kentucky. So all of those things influence the overall flavor of a wine. Yeah, nobody's soaking a leather shoe in there, or at least not wines that we're drinking.
Super cool. Yeah.
In most parts of the world, it's illegal to add additional sugar or additional water. Sometimes you can acidify a wine. You can add a little bit of acidity if it's a really hot region. But in most fine wine regions around the world, including the U.S., Chile, Argentina, they have very strict rules about what can be put into wine. So it's the influence of the climate, the location. Yeah. Good question though. So we're ready to move on to the Southern Hemisphere. Okay, let's take a big sniff of the Sauvignon Blanc. tell me if that's a different aroma than what you had in the rosé. Yes, no, maybe. This is a classic Southern Hemisphere cold climate Sauvignon Blanc. So let's go back to our map here. New Zealand, in terms of wine growing regions in the Southern Hemisphere, is probably one of the cooler climates. There are some cooler regions of Chile that are producing some really high quality wines, but it's hard to get much more south than New Zealand. And this wine that we're having is from the Marlborough region. You can see this little area here on the South Island of New Zealand. This is renowned for Sauvignon Blanc. If you're getting a wine from New Zealand, 9 out of 10 chances it's going to be a Sauvignon Blanc, and 9.5 times out of 10 it's going to be from this little region of Marlborough. It's outside of some regions in France in the Loire Valley where you get Sauvignon Blanc like Sancerre. Marlborough is really considered the ground zero for what we call New World, non-European style of Sauvignon Blanc. And this is what the influence of a really cold climate will do for a wine. We'll just kind of take a big sniff. You know, this wine, I know that I can't remember who it was. We got some citrus on the rosé, but this is like the other end of citrus to me. This is more grapefruity, more kind of lime zest. So rather than like a sweeter citrus like orange or tangerine, this is the more the other end. I wouldn't say bitter, but it's just a different type of citrus, but I definitely get that. There's also, to me, kind of a grassy aroma that's usually associated with Sauvignon Blanc, and that is part of that is because it's real cloudy there in Marlborough, and they get some sunshine, so the grapes are able to ripen, but there's just a lot of cloudy days, so the grapes retain a lot of that fresh acidity, but they have to work real hard to ripen, but you get really cold nights, so it preserves the freshness of the wine. So let's take a sip and see what you think.
I feel like Sauv Blanc is for the people that like vodka soda with double lime, and then like rosé is kind of for people with like vodka cranberry.
Yes, that's a great way to think about it.
It's basic girls for both of those, Laura.
Yeah, I'm like, I like both. So,
yeah.
Like, sure, yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah,
I'm in there too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually when I taste it, I get more of a almost a tropical feel of in some of the. I mean, I definitely get that zestiness of citrus, but I'm getting some more of that, a little bit more tropical fruit flavor from this, but my mouth is definitely watering. You know, if you think about some of the classic pairings with Sauvignon Blanc, fresh goat cheese, like fresh goat cheese with fresh sliced tomatoes, a little drizzle of olive oil, that and Sauvignon Blanc are considered a classic pairing. This Sauvignon Blanc and raw oysters on the half shell, that's also, you know, I mean, you get that right in New Zealand, you get that on the Atlantic coast in France, but Sauvignon Blanc and raw oysters are another classic pairing, like shrimp salad, crab salad, chicken salad, all of those things are just like really cozy up with Sauvignon Blanc. What's everyone think about the Matua? any initial thoughts about you like, you don't like? I'm not a fan of Sauvignon Blanc, you know.
It tastes crisper than the last one I drank.
I feel like it's a
That
lot
is
more
for
tart
sure.
too. Like a lot more
Yeah.
tart, citrusy.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, and like I said, if we were at a wine dinner, I probably would have poured the rosé as everyone walked in the house and we were just hanging out. But you can definitely see, had we started with the Sauvignon Blanc, the acidity and the crispness of that wine, when like if you go back and take a swig of the rosé right now, it's going to kind of taste flat because the acidity in the Sauvignon Blanc is so assertive that it kind of steamrolls the poor little rosé because it's so delicate. But it's that crispness is really what you're looking for in a Sauvignon Blanc. I would also say that when it comes to pairing food and wine, one of the things that trips up and freaks out people more than anything else is pairing a wine with salad. Everyone just kind of goes nuts. Sauvignon Blanc and salad with a vinaigrette are like a match made in heaven because the acidity in the Sauvignon Blanc and the acidity in the vinaigrette, they literally cancel each other out. It softens the wine, and what you do is you end up tasting the sweet or the herbal or fruit aromas of the olive oil or whatever herb you have in the vinaigrette, and then you taste like the inherent natural sweetness of the lettuces or whatever other fruits and vegetables might be in the salad. So it's kind of counterintuitive that you might want to have something that's acidic like this, but with a salad, it's perfect. The same thing holds true for salsa, like a mango salsa, high acidity, a little bit of like jalapeno or habanero chilies. You pair a tart wine like Sauvignon Blanc with the acidity of a salsa, and again, they cancel each other out, softens the Sauvignon Blanc, and just like dials up all the beautiful sweetness of the fruit and the tomatoes, the tomatillas, whatever's in. It's really a cool way to pair wine with things that you might typically think about pairing beer with, you know, in the case of salsa, but it's really a really nice pairing. Yeah.
Scott, if I were to go to a liquor store or a wine store, is it safe for me? Like, Sauvignon Blanc is my absolute favorite. I love a good Sancerre, but Sancerre is always a little bit more expensive. And so
a little bit more
whenever
expensive.
something cheap and easy, it's like, let's go with the Sauv Blanc. Is it safe to go into a store and say, I want a New Zealand Sauv Blanc from the Marlborough region, or like, do most come from that region? Or like, what would be the safest thing to say that would get me the best bottle for like $20, you know, or below?
Just say, you know, I'm looking for a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc between 15 and $20. Yeah, I mean, seriously, 99% of the Sauvignon Blanc that you're going to have from New Zealand is going to come from Marlborough.
Okay,
There's
so
some
I don't have
other, you know, if you look at the map, Hawke's Bay is another hot spot for Sauvignon Blanc. But really, you know, the historic home in the Southern Hemisphere is Marlborough. And the truth is that Matua is probably, I think for the last 3 years, has been voted the #1 rated Sauvignon Blanc, like under $15. They make it's a great Tuesday night Sauvignon Blanc. They also make a fantastic Pinot Noir Rosé and a regular just red Pinot Noir that's phenomenal. Pinot Noir is the other big grape out of New Zealand. It does really well in that cool climate. But yeah, that's a great spot for it. If you like this style, another spot that is worth discovering is Chilean Sauvignon Blanc. It's more in this style. Where it's grown in Chile is right near the Pacific Ocean, and there's this a current called the Humboldt Current that flows directly along the coast of Chile on the Pacific there. And it makes that part of the Pacific Ocean just frigid. It's freezing cold. If you ever get a chance to go and you go down to Concepcion or Valparaiso and you get a chance to put your foot in the water there, it's totally different than putting your, I mean, if you think that, you know, jumping in the Pacific in San Francisco is cold, it's even colder in that part of Chile. And so that cold ocean influence, because at its widest, Chile is only about 60 miles wide. So a lot of the vineyards are concentrated near the coast, and that cool climate creates a style that's very similar to this. And again, really easy on the wallet. But yeah, Marlborough is, you know, these days it's becomes really popular. A lot of people are enjoying this style of Sauvignon Blanc, and a lot of great wines in that, you know, $15 to $18 range now.
Okay, best Sancerre that's cheap. Go.
One of my favorite is one called Laporte, Laportte. That's a great one. What's another really fantastic one? The Drouhin family makes one that's also pretty wonderful. Yeah, but it's still, even the really good ones are still, you're going to still pay more than $20 for it.
Yeah, right.
You know, and so, you know, I'm not opposed to it. I love Sancerre, but it's also, I'm just as happy to have one. The other spot is, you know, Bordeaux. You really hear about the red wines of Bordeaux, but Sauvignon Blanc is probably the most famous white wine in Bordeaux. You just don't hear a ton about it. But Entre-deux-Mers, which is a region in Bordeaux, their white blends are mostly Sauvignon Blanc and another grape called Semillon, but also super refreshing, dry, yummy, you know, $12, $15. Yeah, easy drinking.
Anyone else have any questions? I feel like yeah, Tom, shoot.
In the same vein, Scott, do you have any just general advice for, like, so regardless of what kind of wine you need, just if you're in a wine store and you don't recognize anything, like, how do you avoid buying something shitty? You know what I mean? Yeah,
no, I definitely know what you mean. This is going to sound like a non-answer, but the best way to avoid getting ripped off is because again, it's totally subjective. You want to zero in on wines that you enjoy, that you feel like you got good value for your money. So learn the grape you like, learn the region you like, right? And then so let's just use this Sauvignon Blanc as an example. If you like the style of this wine, this wine is indicative of Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. So if you like style of wine, when you go into a wine store, don't freak out or stress about, you know, the winemaker. Just know in your head, okay, I'm looking for a Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. 9 out of 10 times, you're gonna be pleased with what you buy because you already know ahead of time that you like wines from that region, and Sauvignon Blanc is the grape that you like. The other thing that I encourage people to do is find a wine brand that you like. And I'll give you a good example. I'm a big fan of Columbia Crest wines in Washington State. You know, it's hard to buy a Columbia Crest wine that's more than $15, $18. They make some real high-end wines. Most of their wines are between, you know, $10 and $18, right? I know that regardless of what grape I buy from them, what vineyard, whatever, I know that they make really good, solid wines. And I know that I could just close my eyes and pick one of their bottles. It may not, you know, knock my socks off, but I know it's going to be a really well-made wine because I know the company makes wines that I like. That's another trick. Because the truth is that as consumers, whether you're walking into a grocery store or you're walking into a wine store, you're overwhelmed by the just sheer volume of wines, and you have to know a little bit about what your preference is, and that's where just making a mental note, or even putting in your phone, I like this grape, I like this region, and be be forceful about it. Like, don't get pushed around. This is what you like. Look for that style of wine. There are regions in the world that are better values than others. I love wines from California, but I don't spend my mind. Whew, that was a Freudian slip. I don't spend my money on California wines because I know there are better values elsewhere. I buy wines from Washington State. If I buy a U.S. wine, great. I mean, again, it's hard to buy a bad wine from Washington State. I'm just telling you. So, it's easy to get ripped off if you buy a wine from France, if you don't know France. It's easy to get ripped off on a wine from California if you don't know California. Argentina, Chile, those are all great spots for good, well-made, solid wines. Probably not gonna, open your mind and illuminate you to a level that you think this is the best wine I've ever had, but you buy it and you will take it home and be like, yeah, this is a great, solid wine. You get that value, and you don't feel ripped off. I would stay away from Pinot Noir. That's a really tough grape to buy if you are not willing to spend money and if you don't know the regions. I've heard so many stories of people that go into a wine shop and just pick out the first Pinot Noir they see, and they take it home and they're super disappointed. Pinot Noir is expensive wherever you get it, and it's just tough. I don't encourage people to buy that right off the rack. That's the south of France is the Rhone Valley is a great place for good wine values that are always consistent. It's just like a little playbook, a little cheat sheet of just a few bullet points that you need, and it'll really improve your experience buying wines for sure.
So you're saying we all need to drink a lot more.
Well, yeah, or at least sample the wines. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing is, and I mean this with all sincerity, use your phone. I don't care how hammered you are. You'll have enough sense to say, you know what, I'm going to take a picture of this label. And it seems super corny, but trust me, a week later when you're thinking, man, I really like that wine. I'd like to, I'd love to get another bottle or try another wine from that maker, from that region. Just snap a picture of it. That's the easiest way to capture a restaurant or, somewhere out in public. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Just take a picture of the label. That's another great tip. It really is. Yeah.
It sounds to me like the key is not so much saying, I like Pinot Noir. It's saying, I like Sauvignon Blanc, but I know it's safe bet in New Zealand. Like, know the region, or really become a fan of a brand. Yeah,
and listen. I did a wine event for a group of attorneys last week, and they weren't wine aficionados by any stretch of the imagination, and I had a white wine, Grenache Blanc, from Spain, from near in that Catalan area, and they all went crazy over it. And they said, man, this is great. I want to have, how do I learn more about this wine? Tell me some great producers. And I said, you know what? All you need to know is that if you like this wine, wherever you buy wine that's from Spain and the grape is Grenache Blanc, you're going to love whatever it is, because that's the region and that's the grape. And that's all that was their primary takeaway. And they all went and had great success with it. And that's really what it's about. It's like, it really is about the region without having to, spend hours reading encyclopedias about wine. You just need to know, hey man, I really like that wine. If you're, kind of your eyes, kind of perk up and you think, man, this wine is great, just take a picture of the label and everything you need to know is right on the label. The country, the grape, whatever, it's right there. And that's your first clue. It really is. Yeah.
I have a question. So when it comes to like really expensive bottles of wines, like thousands of dollars, what constitutes that? Is it the grape? Is it the region?
Yeah, it's all of those things. I'd say first and foremost, it's about supply and demand. So the wines that you're paying, that you're getting at auction that are thousands of dollars, the first thing is to know is that the reason that they're so expensive is because there's so little of it. Whether that's by the winemaker just making a low allocation of it, or it could be like in the region of Burgundy, the little vineyards are so tiny that they can only produce so much. So the wines that you're paying a lot for typically come from Burgundy or from Bordeaux, and a lot of that is really about the exact specifications of where it's grown, and that it's like they've grown the grapes in a little tiny farm, and so it only may produce a couple of cases. Let's just say that only a couple of hundred cases each year, and so you have very small allocation. And then that wine is going to have to stay in the cellar for 10, 15 years before they can release it. So they've already got this capital investment. And then by the time it hits the market, there's such a demand for it. There's so little of it. They've invested so much in it that the market will bear, $1,000 a bottle. It's a weird thing. I've been drinking wine a long time. I'm not sure that I could tell the difference between a $50 bottle of Cab and a $1,000 bottle of Cab. I'm just not sure I can. But that's not my jam. Some guys ride motorcycles. Some people collect wine. But that's really what drives up the price at that level. For mortals like us, when you buy a red wine that's $10 or $15 and you buy a red wine that's $50, that price difference is probably because they've used higher quality barrels to age the wine. The wines are coming from a slightly more specific region, but at that price point, it's really about how the hands-on part of the production. So it's more driven by economics than it is by small allocation and scarcity. It's really more about, it's like the difference between, an entry-level car and then like the next 2 or 3 tiers up with all the bells and whistles. Like, one has leather interior, the other has cloth interior. That's kind of what's happening in the vineyard. One has new barrels, one may have, old barrels, or they may even just be like aged with oak staves rather than actually being in a barrel. So, a lot of that's kind of how that price difference works.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but
good business to get into.
Though.
Make some money.
Well, it is, but what you'll find is that, man, it is so capital intensive, and it's also, and I did a wine event on Saturday night, and we ended up talking a lot about this, which is because I had a winemaker on as a guest, and he said, "Man, we're just farmers. We're at the mercy. We could be growing corn or we could be growing grapes, but it is." Every year, it's a total crapshoot. You might have an early spring frost that kills everything. You may have hail right before harvest, knocks all the fruit off. You may have some kind of mildew or virus that comes through the vineyard, kills everything. The bank doesn't care. You've borrowed all that money. You still, drive up and down through Napa and Sonoma on like a Wednesday afternoon and see how many vineyard managers are like inside those local banks, on their hands and knees asking for extensions, and it's brutal. It can be. Many of the people, especially in America, that get into the wine business have incredibly deep pockets. I mean, I'm talking, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that they can devote to capitalizing a vineyard, because you got to put the vines in. It's 5 years before you even get fruit. The best fruit happens between, say, 5 and 7 years. Then you got to make the wine. Then you got to cellar it. Then you got to get it to market 3 or 4 or 5 years later. Like, you're not seeing any cash flow for a long time. And so
it's a millionaire's
it's better
hobby.
to go work a harvest. Yeah. It's the old, how do you make $1 million in the wine business? Start with 5 million.
Yeah.
But it's better to go work a harvest as a volunteer, so you can really get a firsthand look at what's going on. But it's cool. It's a really exciting industry where you get to be a part of the land, and then create this product that people love to drink and enjoy. Yeah.
We're going to take you over 6:30. We should probably scooch to the red.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the red.
So the same people who are making the wine are the same ones who are drinking the $1,000 bottles?
Sometimes it's usually their best customers. The people making the wine are usually drinking what we're drinking, because they understand the value. And they definitely can splurge with some really super high-end wines, but they're looking for values just like we are, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the last wine, the Las Rocas. This I have to say is probably, in terms of red and white wines, this is one of my favorite wine regions in the entire world. I love the wines from Panedes. I love the wines from Terra Alta. This whole area of eastern Spain, because you're talking from right here in Barcelona up to the French border is a 90-minute drive. You're right there. You've got the Mediterranean right here, which is not nearly as cold as the Atlantic over here on by Portugal, and this part of Spain, where the wines are real light and crisp. But over here on the east side, it's a little bit warmer. You get a little bit more sunshine, and I love this region. But this wine that you're having, this Garnacha, is, I'd say candidly, for 2019 and 2020, this is one of my favorite red wine values across the board. I've got a couple of others that are in my little cheat sheet, but this wine I can't get enough of. And I love the fact that you can go to just about any store in America and get this. If you were to brown bag this and take it to a party, I promise you, as sure as I'm standing here, people would think you spent, twice, 3 times what this wine retails for. But it's what I want you to know is that it's the grape is Grenache, and you hear a lot about wines from Rioja, which are wonderful, amazing area. So you get a little bit more to the interior part of Spain, toward the north. You hear about the sherry in the south of Spain, but over here by Barcelona, in this little area, which is often forgotten, but they've been making wine here for hundreds of years. This is where some really great values are, because everybody's fussing over the red wines of Rioja. That's where you're spending $500-600 a bottle, maybe $1,000 a bottle for these Riojas from Ribera del Duero, and they're amazing. But for my money, on a Tuesday night with some barbecue or burgers or lasagna, something like this Garnacha to me is absolutely fantastic. So let's, I hope you guys have had a taste of this, but let's quickly have a sniff. This is, to me, is just so, delicious. I get, blackberry, some more of that cherry, really lively red, fresh fruit. And if you have a sip, real fresh, real juicy.
That's easy to drink.
Yeah, and that is why I like this wine. It has good acidity, but it's a smooth wine. Red wines, when they stay in contact, where the skin stays in contact with the juice, one of the things that comes out of the skin are tannins. You don't get those in white wine, but you get them in red wine because they're in the skins. They allow the red wine to age, but they're the phenolic compound that dries out your tongue. If you've had a really full-bodied red wine, your mouth just dries out, and that's a good thing because that's what you want. If you've got a big, hunk of ribeye that comes off the grill with a hunk of fat on it, you want some of those tannins. But these wines, because they're not aged in a lot of oak, and because Grenache is not high in tannins, they're very smooth, very silky. They are easy to drink. Sometimes I call these wines porch pounders. They're just real fun, easy. But they also can be very elegant and pair with something really fancy, but they're also super approachable. And that's just what makes this area such a great value and such a great destination for red and white wines. But yeah, I love this area.
I wasn't able to find the Las Rocas, but I found one from Rioja. It's called Campo Viejo, and
Campo Viejo. Yeah,
tastes amazing.
So yeah. Now that Tempranillo, which is the big, that's the most famous grape in all of Spain. But that Campo Viejo is interesting because it's a fairly youthful wine, so it's still also really easy to drink. And like this Garnacha, the thing about that Tempranillo and the Campo Viejo one is that it has a little bit of spiciness to it, but it's also great with, flank steak, burgers, pizza, just a good, easy drinking, fun wine. That's another, like this Los Rocas, that Campo Viejo is another one of those brands that I buy grape jelly from those people. Everything they make is great. It may not change your worldview, but you can be assured that whatever you get from them is high quality. It's just one of those producers that makes really good wine that you can have a lot of confidence in. So if like you're at the wine store and you're overwhelmed by all the choices, you see that Campo Viejo, for example, you can buy that and walk out and you know that you're going to have a solid wine on your hands, just like this Garnacha.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd buy anything they made.
I was used to getting the port wines, the red port, and that was like tasting like more sweet for me, and but this is like on the money for me. So
Well, keep in mind the port wines. What they do is they take grapes that are very similar to that Tempranillo. They take some red grapes that they grow. Actually, if you can see this map, this is the river that runs through the heart of where the grapes are grown in Portugal. So up in this northern quadrant of Portugal. But when they make port is a fortified wine. So during fermentation, while there's still some sweetness left in the grape juice before the yeast can consume it all, they add brandy to it. And the brandy is so high in alcohol that immediately stops fermentation. It kills the yeast. So you have some residual sugar and it's super high in alcohol because you've added the brandy to it. But like if you drink port, that's what allows it to age. So like things like port, sherry, Madeira, those are fortified wines. They can last for 20 years. And that's how, when they used to make the wines here in Portugal and down in they make the port here, they make the sherry down here, they put them on these ships, they'd sail them over to England, or they'd sell them, over to the Far East. They had to be able to take the hot temperatures in the hull of the ship. And the reason they were able to age and to still be suitable for drinking is because they were so high in alcohol. But that's what's unique about the port. That's why they're a little bit sweet. It's got some of that residual sugar in it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Scott, I want to make sure we get to this before we all have to pop off or anything, but you guys will be mind blown about Scott's little trick on
Yeah.
red wine and the temperature. So
That's right.
I was talking about clearly, and I definitely think we should address this for each of the wines.
Yes.
Many of you may get through all 3 bottles tonight. For those of you that do not, what is the best way to store them?
It's a great
Work
question.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now for sure you, like, I can already tell, you're like, are the first 2 bottles done? No, just
Yeah, good question. So let's start with the Sauvignon Blanc. So white wines, they have less ageability. And a lot of that is due to the fact contact with the skins. They don't have tannins. However, this Sauvignon Blanc is super high in acidity, and wines that are high in acidity hold a little bit better. So the primary enemies of wine that turn it into vinegar are oxygen and heat. Okay, so just like a banana or avocado, the minute you open it up, it starts to oxidize and turn. Same thing happens to wine. So acidity is partly a preservative. So you could put the top back on the Sauvignon Blanc, chuck it in the refrigerator. It'll be just fine to drink on tomorrow for sure, maybe even Friday. It'll probably hold, has enough acidity. The rosé, not quite as much acidity, a little more delicate. You could put a cork back in it, chuck it in the refrigerator. You could drink it tomorrow. It'll be fine. It'll probably start to lose a little bit of its pizzazz, but it'd still be perfectly drinkable. But keep in mind that, so you're trying to limit its exposure to oxygen. And then of course, storing it in the refrigerator is just like, putting anything in the refrigerator. That cold temperature is going to retard spoilage and retard oxidation. So you're both lowering the temperature and you're eliminating exposure to oxygen. Now, when it comes to red wine, it's a little bit of a different animal. This Grenache that you have is actually higher in acidity, so that's a great thing. Helps to preserve it. It's a young wine, so because it's a young wine and very youthful, it's got a lot of staying power. It's like trying to it's like the difference between a 5-year-old kid and a 70-year-old adult. The 5-year-old is going to have more energy. Same thing with a youthful wine like this. So it'll stick around. And I would put a cork in the red wine and chuck it in the refrigerator. And the truth is the wine will probably actually taste better tomorrow. Once it's had a chance to actually mix with a little bit of oxygen, it'll be better tomorrow and may even be better on Friday. But you can keep this wine around for another couple of days. But the question that I get following when I say the follow-up to when I'm encouraging people to store it in the refrigerator is, well, do I just have to take the wine out and let it come to room temperature? Yes, you can do that. But a trick that I learned years ago from a very knowledgeable wine professional was that, and I do this today, I'll just take the wine out of the refrigerator. I'll take a microwave-proof, cup, like a Pyrex measuring cup, pour about a cup of wine in there and chuck it in the refrigerator, in the microwave for about 12 to 15 seconds just to take the chill off. So it's still cool, but takes the chill off, pour it into my wine glass, and you're off and running. It's an amazing trick, and it actually helps you enjoy the red wine longer because the red wine is doing what it's supposed to do, which is slowly oxidizing in the refrigerator, maintaining that freshness, and then you just take a little bit of the chill off by putting it in the microwave. And I really mean only like 12 seconds. You don't want to warm the wine up. You just want to take the chill off. And then you'll pour it in your glass. You have this nice, beautiful cellar temperature red wine, and it's great. It's a great way to enjoy a glass of wine or two every night without having to stress about finishing the entire bottle.
You guys heard it here first.
Just trying to picture us putting this in the microwave. That is shocking.
I'm
Right.
telling you,
My
just
dad,
don't.
my dad went to Napa once, and his favorite fun fact is that red wine is traditionally served too warm, and white wine is traditionally served too cold. And he tells that to everybody.
That is exactly right.
But now that's my
It's
favorite
true.
fun fact about wine.
Yes.
This microwave one,
Yes.
maybe your
The
next
only-
one, Sarah.
Yeah, now I'm gonna just microwave all the wines, and it's just gonna.
Right,
it's
just
gonna
the red wines. But I was kind of like, in the winter, I'm always keeping my bottles out on the counter. And now I feel more comfortable putting them in the refrigerator.
You
and then
gotta
just
put them in the
eating.
refrigerator.
Yeah.
The truth is that sparkling wine is the only wine that can't be chilled enough. That's it. We do chill our white wines. They're served too cold. And when a white wine is served too cold, you taste nothing but the acidity. It's like having a cold piece of pizza right out of the refrigerator. It's fun to eat, but you don't taste the cheese. You don't taste the tomato sauce. So let the wine, kind of warm up a little bit. You want it to be cold. You want it to be, around, 50 degrees, 48 to 50 degrees, but you don't want it to be too cold. Otherwise you're not going to get the enjoyment out of it. Conversely, red wines, if they're served too warm, it only accentuates the alcohol. It accentuates the tannin. You don't get any of the freshness there. It's like drinking a glass of Welch's red grape juice. It's no fun. And so when they talk about red wines being served at cellar temperature, they really do mean like 58 to 62 degrees. Don't be afraid to put a bottle of red wine in the refrigerator for 15 or 20 minutes. And if you order a bottle of wine in a restaurant and they bring it to the table and you touch the bottle and it's like your body temperature, send that back, man. You're getting ripped off. Or tell them you want another bottle, or bring an ice bucket or something. Let it chill up a little bit, because you're just not going to get your money's worth. And it's a way that it's kind of sloppy service in a restaurant. And I try and encourage people to be empowered consumers. Send it back. Don't waste your money. They're marking that wine up enough already.
Love it. This is all so great. Any remaining questions? Hopefully, I've learned that you are allowed to pair wine with pizza. I like that you're like,
Yes.
This is really great pizza.
Yeah. Dude, let me tell you something. Chardonnay and popcorn and Chardonnay and cold fried chicken. There's so many champagne and Hawaiian potato chips, kettle fries. Oh my goodness. Come on. There's so many things out there that are awesome. Yeah.
I think our next tasting should be wines that go with junk food. What do you guys think?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now, this Garnacha and Cheetos cheese puffs are awesome. You've got that cheesy thing going on, and this smooth Garnacha are man, that's a good old shame spiral right there.
Love that. This is all in the budget, not a shame spiral, just our budget. Come on.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
It's so fun. I love it. Thank you so much. And yes, Scott,
you're welcome.
To finish up. Any other remaining questions?
I got one. So Scott, what's the most bottles of wine you've drank in a day? You don't have to lie. We won't judge you. I need to know.
Yeah, right before we had official lockdown, my family was with my best friend, and we took down north of 10 bottles. I know we did. We got to 10 or 12 that night, for sure.
That's an inspiration.
Wow.
Yeah. My trick is that you got to have a glass of water for every glass of wine. If you can do that, you can keep the road will go on forever, and it'll limit your hangover in the morning. I learned that early on in my career from the Mondavi family. I wrote a story on Robert Mondavi's grandson, Rob Mondavi, who now lives in Atlanta and has a wine distribution company. But he said that as a kid, you know, they drank wine from the time they could sit at the table, and it was usually mixed with a little bit of water, but they didn't have a meal without wine. And he said that was their family's, that was the way that they worked, is that you had a glass of water for every glass of wine, and they would go all night long. But it does help. But yeah.
That's great. That's a good secret. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So 10 to 12 a night, we should be able to pick a favorite grape at that point.
Well, hopefully by the time you get past like bottle 5 or 6, you've zeroed in on one that's gonna be the horse that you ride all the way in to bed. But
well,
yeah,
after 5 or 6, it doesn't matter anymore. You can't taste it anyway, right?
It depends. You know, you kind of have that moment of clarity where you're like, man, this is really good. You really do. I mean, even through the haze, you can. When you latch onto something you really like, sometimes you can consciously think, man, if I'm going to go down swinging, I want to go down swinging with this wine. Yeah, for sure.
Corey, send us an email when you're 6 bottles deep.
I only have 3 here. What do you want me to do? An email's coming shortly after 3.
That's right. That's right. Well, I do want to say in closing that I send out every couple of weeks a newsletter to all of my mailing list with wine recommendations, and they can be from stuff like we had tonight. They could be things from Costco. I'm on this kick with wines from Aldi, which is like a whole nother freaky world of wine, where there are some in there. So if you are interested in getting on my mailing list, you can send me an email to scott@jonesisthirsty.com, and I'll be happy to add you to my mailing list. And likewise on Instagram and Twitter @jonesisthirsty. I'm posting many of those same recommendations, and also announcing upcoming virtual wine events, which I do every other Saturday night. I do virtual wine events for the public. And the next one actually is on the wines of Spain, which can be a lot of fun. I've got a buddy of mine who's a poet that lives in Ireland, and he's written a book of poetry about the Camino pilgrimage through the north of Spain. And he's going to come on and read some poetry from his time on the pilgrimage. And we're going to drink some really, really awesome Spanish wines that, again, are, under $15. They're like $12. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. So, and you have my email address. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me anytime. My friends are shameless about texting me at 10 o'clock at night with an image of the wine menu where they're at dinner, asking me to pick wines for them. I have plenty of my friends that will FaceTime me from wine shops and just walk around holding the phone, having me pick out wines for them. So I'm happy to answer questions if you ever get locked up and need some advice.
What's your phone number?
Yeah.
Right.
Notice only Instagram, although
yeah,
we're all
I see that.
So,
Yeah, but truly, I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, I love it. It really, in a corny kind of way, makes me feel like I'm actually good, where I'm helping people out of a jam, because I know how absolutely overwhelming it can be. It's like me going into the AutoZone looking for the right air filter for my car. I mean, I can't think of anything that is as debilitating as having to figure out, which windshield wipers or which air filter I need for my car. So I know that feeling of just being completely stricken by fear. So happy to help people out of a jam. Yeah.
Awesome. You've been great. Thanks so much. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it and learned a couple things, a couple tricks up your sleeve now. And awesome, Scott. Thanks so much.
You bet. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to go microwave my wine now, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.